Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
How do these things work? It's been so long I don't remember.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Renee, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's great to see you, Matt. We've been away for over a month. More and more.
Probably more, a month and a half.
And a half. I got a little sick, but also great news. We're in new digs.
New digs. Nobody can see it, but trust me, it's nice.
Let me tell you. So about 2 years ago, this guy emails me and he says, "Hey, I love MMA and I love doing podcasts. Would you ever think about doing a podcast on MMA?" And I'm like, that sounds interesting. So we set it up in our academy on our on our desk, and everything was like, haphazard. And then it got really popular. And then you started doing other podcasts, and you had your one location. And then unfortunately, we lost that location. And then you had another one, which was really nice downtown. And now you have this beautiful space. I'm going to post some pictures. But this space is unbelievable. Beautiful light, so professional. And it's so wonderful to see you live in your dream. And we've got Teddy Atlas doing his podcast two doors away. And the legendary guy. And then you also have some other famous people I know, it's on your podcast.
Bill Nye was here.
Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, the science guy.
Oh, my God. Can I meet him? I want to meet Bill Nye.
I want to meet him. I wasn't here for that. Rosie Perez.
No
here.
kidding.
Yeah. She was on Teddy's show.
Oh.
Of course.
Does she box?
She's really into it as a fan.
Oh, as a fan, right.
Yeah. She was at the fight yesterday.
Yeah,
at MSG,
the Ruiz fight.
Which was, I'm not into boxing, but I heard it was an upset.
Yeah. Whatever. Sorry, boxing fans. And that's actually, I want to talk about boxing later. People want to talk about, like, is boxing better? Is karate better? Is Muay Thai better? And, I will talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, it was a big fight, and it was definitely an upset. And, it has become the year, 2019 is the year of the dad bods.
Is it?
Yeah, the guy who won the boxing.
Oh, yeah, he did. He's not really.
And we got Cormier, we got him.
Well, I'm in luck, man. Things are coming my way.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There's been some things that happen in, obviously, the UFC and then MMA in general. Going on. I don't know anything that's happened. I've been in a bubble.
I know. You have to build this place.
I've been putting drywall up. My God.
I want to say that I'm a terrible, terrible friend, because Matt goes, "Do you know anybody that live in heavy stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can't because I'm injured." And I'm like, and then he's like, "You know what I mean?" Like, I asked some people, they're like, "I can't," and I didn't help out, so I felt bad.
We got a TaskRabbit. Paid him $50. He carried everything on bullet oil.
Oh, that's great.
It was beautiful.
What is TaskRabbit? What is that?
It's like Uber for people. So you can hire somebody to do anything you want.
They'll
clean your house. They'll mount a TV. They'll do anything. And
really?
So this guy, he was just bringing stuff upstairs.
That's so great. Why have I never heard of that before?
Yeah, it's an app, TaskRabbit.
Oh, I'm totally going to download that right now.
Yeah, you can get them to do anything. I mean, within reason.
Yeah, and I mean like little things, like put stuff together or stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
IKEA is big.
Yeah,
they'll put together your IKEA stuff, carry groceries, things like that. Yeah.
That's so great, yeah, because there's so many people who maybe due to injury. I mean, I'm great. I have a lot of support network, but there was when I got hit by a car, I was consigned to my bed for a long time, and there was like nothing. Imagine if I was all alone. I wouldn't have my cousin Elaine, my mom, my best friends, all took care of me, and so it was fine. But when you're a complete invalid, it's very hard to get around. So this sounds like a wonderful
need
thing.
help.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Everybody needs help.
Yeah, your eye's better. I haven't seen you since your eye.
Eye.
We didn't even talk about that beforehand. He's just amazing at puns. He works it in. No matter what. Your eye's good.
Yeah. It's my eye's much better. Thanks.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. But every now and again you have to be careful. And I was always telling my students the other day about Winklejohn from Jackson Wink. He's holding the pads, and the guy's toe goes into his eye, and he loses his vision. Oh. And did you know the same thing happened to Kat Zingano in her last fight? Her eye got, or one of her recent fights, I don't know if it was the last one, I'm pretty sure it was the last one, her eye got injured, and she might have to retire from that because she had some sort of retinal detachment or something like that. It's really, really serious. But that being said, she kept fighting. It wasn't like a stoppage or anything like that. You'd be surprised. In the moment of adrenaline, groin shots, eye gouges, they don't really stop you. Most of the time you see MMA guys, they stop because they eye gouge. Yeah, the eye hurts, but also what they want to do is take a little rest.
Right.
There was that fight about it, with the Chinese fighter, eye gouged the other guy doing the guillotine. He's like, okay, you're eye gouging me. It's okay. I'm still going to choke you.
They just want you to stop choking me.
Yeah.
I'm going to poke you in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here I go.
Yeah, and you can see it actually if you look at self-defense videos. A lot of times guys will stick their fingers in the eye to get out of something or grip, and the guy just kind of powers through. It's obviously the damage later on is not good, but in that moment, if you put all your eggs on putting your finger in the guy's eye to escape, not as sound a strategy as actually attacking the leverage.
My life or my eye, I'm giving my eye.
Exactly, right. Exactly, right,
For
right.
sure.
Yeah.
So
I have to agree.
You got any other ones you want to just get out of the way?
It's been pent up, It's been a few weeks.
So what else is going on in MMA? What's going on with you?
Everything's good.
How's the academy? Everything.
Academy is absolutely fantastic. Getting ready. G took a little break. He won his last fight. Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
And
then I saw on Instagram there was a submission only event recently?
Yeah. My guys did really well. G didn't compete because he had a little neck injury, but he's taking a break. He's off in Ireland and traveling and having fun and enjoying his life. But we're getting ready for August, which is we have fight teams getting ready for some MMA shows in August, and everything's good. Yeah, the team is doing well, and there was. Speaking of which, there's been a lot of martial arts events. Not just MMA, although there's been some really big MMA events, but there was the Combat Jiu-Jitsu Bantamweight World Championships. And this was unbelievable. And yesterday, the IBJF World Championships, the Sport Jiu-Jitsu World Championships just finished. And I watched both. I didn't watch a lot of the IBJF because, I'm not the biggest fan. But, I kind of watched a little bit of it because my old instructor, Lucas Lepre, was competing and he won, which was fantastic. He's a huge fan of his and he's a wonderful person. Very lucky to have trained him. Sport Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm not really into the Sport Jiu-Jitsu scene so much anymore, but he's a absolutely fantastic person. And also I like to watch Bruno Malfacine, who is a 10-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion. His segued to MMA, but went back to do the world championships this year. So there was the IBJF, which is, and let me tell you about the rules of IBJF, so the guys who don't know, it's basically, you can win by tapping someone out, but you can also win by points. So different positions get different points. And there's also these things called advantages, where it's not really a point, but you're doing something aggressive, so they give you an advantage. And then there's the referee's decision. And there's a lot of, what happens is when you introduce points and things like that, there's a lot of point fighting. Rather than actually going to tap the guy out, you actually just go to score points, and then you kind of stall out the match or something like that. And it degrades the fighting efficacy of the art because points don't exist in real life. That being said, a lot of these positions are valuable positions too. So, there's two sides of every debate. But when guys kind of ignore takedown games, and they just kind of sit on their butt and they do this and they play games. But aside from the points, there's because of the rules, every martial art, and this is true, whether it's karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai, you're gonna fight to the rules of the art, of the sport. Sorry, you're gonna fight the rules of sport, and eventually, your sport is gonna change and evolve towards that. So, what you see is certain things that are happening in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that would not happen in an MMA match, or different decision making, because it's different rules, different sport. And when I watch Combat Jiu-Jitsu, which was this different sport, first of all, there's no points, but also there's really, really hard slaps, which simulate strikes.
Right.
And let me tell you, they're really hard. And this guy, Richard Alarcon, I'm a huge fan of this guy now, and he's fighting out of, Team Oyama. It's where what's the fighter? I always forget her name. She was the first 115 MMA champion female. She's Latina. She's very she's very she wrestled. She's very it'll come to me anyway. She's from the same team, and it's Colin Oyama's camp, which is originally kind of related to start out with Tito Ortiz, and it eventually grew. And Giva Santana, who's a very famous MMA champion and jiu-jitsu champion, is the coach there. And he's got a great team of guys, and they're very, very effective. They're a really good fight team. And this guy Richard Alarcon from that team fought in combat jiu-jitsu, and let me tell you, this guy was unreal. And his striking and grappling, and you saw everybody, sometimes they tried some of that stuff that they would do in IBJF rule set, like, the things that they would normally do in a regular sport jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh my God, this is not working. So one of the things you don't see so much in sport jiu-jitsu right now is closed guard. You don't see that much closed guard, which is, wrapping your legs around the guy's waist. And the reason why is one of the main things a closed guard does is it helps you control the posture and stop the guy from punching you. It's called the guard for a reason. It guards you, right? But when there's no punches, it's basically not as useful as a kind of more mobile strategy, right? You open different guard positions, being mobile, trying to do these other positions that can offer you points by tipping the guy over, things like that, right? So you don't see that much closed guard. Let me tell you, in combat jiu-jitsu, it was closed guard all day. And it was all the way back. It was like looking back 20 years in jiu-jitsu, like, yes, these are the fundamentals that made Brazilian jiu-jitsu a killer martial art. And I just love to see it. And but you also saw some of the innovations that have happened in the jiu-jitsu world, but as they relate to combat. And it was amazing. And man, this guy, he stands up in the guy's guard and goes, wabanka, wabanka, wabanka. And I'm like, well, that's some serious ground and pound with slaps. And people had to take that very seriously. And I stopped watching jiu-jitsu tournaments because I do it for research, but I just don't find it entertaining. The same thing, I don't watch boxing. I don't find it entertaining because it's so unidimensional and there's so many things that, could happen here. Okay, if you're doing boxing, you can shoot. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, well, that wouldn't work because you punch you in the face and this and that. And I just, I watch it at a research, but it's sort of like I don't really enjoy it and it just stresses me out and all this, right? I was watching combat jiu-jitsu and I was like glued to the table. It's just forget about if you like jiu-jitsu or not. It's just exciting to watch. And I hope this sport takes over because it's the jiu-jitsu that I love. It's mixing slapping and striking and good jiu-jitsu. There's still some problems with the rules. The problem is they have this overtime thing, right? So if the regulation match stops, they go into overtime and then they start in these like positions that give you an advantage in jiu-jitsu. Oh, it's like sudden death, right? Yeah. And I understand that because, it's submission only and then they can't go on forever. But what I think is in the overtime, they should prioritize positions where you can get hit too, right? Which they don't, right? So I have some problems with the overtime because you could see maybe some of the fighters were like, let me survive through regulation and then go to overtime. Then I don't have to worry about strikes anymore. Right. I'm like, okay. You could see that they're already game planning, you know? So it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but it's absolutely in the right direction. And then, I look at the matches that I saw in sport jiu-jitsu. First of all, there's always a controversy because when you're dealing with points, you're dealing with judge, referee, and then the referee maybe is not looking or he's biased, which is very true. Unfortunately, in every sport, there's always going to be biased referees. And there's unconscious bias, but there's also conscious bias. And then there's people who get robbed. And then there's people who, bad calls, like every sport, right? And submission only is so much better. You tap, you don't tap. Oh, no argument. Did you know exactly what happened? Yeah. So I'm watching that. And then you also saw, so I want to say that Bruno Mafsini is one of my favorite jiu-jitsu guys to watch because he's just so beautiful to watch. Let me tell you, if you know nothing about jiu-jitsu, but you watch this guy move, you're like, that is an artist right there. But he's segued away from jiu-jitsu to MMA because, it pays more money and blah, blah, blah. And he's had excuse me, I'm a little allergies, so I'm sorry. My listeners, I'm a little stuffed up. Sorry about that. But he's had a pretty good career in MMA starting. He's lower level, but he's doing well. But he went back into the IBJF because he wanted to see if he could win 11 times. He won 10 times straight in his division. And he wanted to see if he could win 11 times. And he lost. And he lost to a really good guy named Mike Musumeci, who's actually very good in that. But I could tell why he lost because he's had to orient his game in a different direction, which is MMA. And then that puts him in a disadvantage against people who are focusing on this rule set. And it was a really close fight because, of course, he's really good. It was a really close fight. But at the end, the other guy scored just enough extra points to win. Right. And it's that extra little detail that makes a difference because if you're focused on MMA for jiu-jitsu for MMA or grappling, any type of grappling for MMA, you focus on MMA for the IBJJF rules, they're different and you're going to be in a disadvantage. And some people think you can do the same, but I say, how many jiu-jitsu champions are there doing really well in MMA? And I don't know if we talked about the Jacare Hermansson fight.
It's not familiar.
Yeah. So Jacare is a very famous jiu-jitsu guy. Hermansson is actually pretty good at jiu-jitsu, but he's known as a ground and pound assassin. I mean, this guy's ground and pound is just crazy good. And he takes Jacare down. He's like, oh, I'm not afraid of your jiu-jitsu. because I know you're going to do the wrong things. And they've obviously researched him because a number of the fights, he's just doing the sport jiu-jitsu stuff from the guard. From the top, Jacare is amazing. But from the bottom, he does stuff that is not really the best option. He leaves himself open for a lot of strikes. He did it in the Yoel Romero fight, and he ate this elbow that I'm absolutely sure 100% gave him brain damage. It's that bad. And he even said he couldn't remember after that elbow was like the first round. He couldn't remember the rest of the fight. And for like a week, I don't forget how much time he said, but he's like, he wasn't right. Well, you know what that means? That means you have serious brain damage.
Something wrong.
Yeah, he said he couldn't remember the fight at all. He doesn't remember anything that happened in the fight. And he was, So he took one elbow from Yoel Romero so bad that he's so tough he kept fighting. But he just obviously did not protect himself. And then in another fight too, he did the same thing. He had ground and pound issues. And in this fight, Hermansson takes him down. He's on top of him, and he's eating him alive with strikes. So the way he's grabbing, the way he's moving his hands, it's as if there were no punches, except they're punches. Oh. So what you're doing is wrong. So you have to adjust your game for that reality. And I like Jacare a lot. It's just, a lot of sport jiu-jitsu guys I always kind of root for. I really appreciate them. But if you're not training for that modality, you're not going to be prepared for that modality. It's just so obvious. And that's why I think, combat jiu-jitsu is great because it offers this amazing venue to make some money. Not full MMA. It's still grappling. It's still a sport of grappling. And also you don't have to worry about brain damage because they're slapping and it's not like full contact. I'm going to just crack your face in. You still have to respect it, and it hurts.
You've been slapped?
Yes, I have been slapped. Right, really
hard.
Because
you touched someone's butt?
No. I mean, no, I'd never do that. But I've been slapped in the academy, really hard. And I'll tell you, I had an instructor, and this is an old story. And I think I might have told this on the air once. And it sounds like a hard lesson. And some people say, listen to this, and they'll think that instructor is abusive or whatever. But it's not. He really taught me something important. I'll tell you what happened. So I was training with one of my training partners. Hopefully we'll get him on air. And we're training. We're having a good time. We're laughing, this and that. But we're not like putting the kibosh on, And my instructor knew I was there, and he was an old school guy. He knew I was there to fight MMA eventually. I had not fought yet at that point. And he knew I wanted to take my training seriously. And he's like, do you think that's real combat training? Do you think that's real fight training? That is not real training. Let me show you what training is. And then he started sparring me, and he went, whop, and slapped me so hard in the face. You ever get slapped and you kind of inadvertently start crying?
I've only been slapped twice. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah. Anyway, he slapped me so hard. I'm like, it's almost like the shock, and you're like, you start crying. I'm like kind of embarrassed to say it, but I was like, oh shit. And then he just puts a smackdown on me. Didn't hurt me. Did not hurt me. Let me repeat that. He didn't injure me in any way. So that's the thing is he slapped me. I mean, it hurts. My cheek was red and it was more embarrassing, but he never hurt me. I was never injured. But at the same time, it was like, you almost don't even want to go back to the academy. Mm-hmm. It's like this just complete embarrassment. But it was a really important lesson. It's like if you train at a low pace with like low energy, kind of like, not real, you're not going to be prepared for that high energy, high pace role, high pace combat. It's just obvious. And if you're really training for self-defense, you have to integrate, you have to have a little bit of fear in your training. At the same time, you have to go home safe. But every martial art walks that line where, okay, we want to go home all the day, at the end of the day, back to our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our wives, our husbands, our dogs, or just our apartment if you're alone, and you want to be able to walk the next day and go to work and not lose your job, and you want to not break your body, but at the same time it has to be real. And one of the answers to that is to wear protection, like big gloves, headgear, and that's kind of not been so successful because people have found that wearing headgear this takes more trauma. The other answer is to tone down the training and train light. And that can be good. In our academy, we train light with strikes a lot more than hard strikes. But there has to be an intensity. And what happens is a lot of times, and you look at different martial arts and rule sets, they add, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, because they're working on I want to keep people safe. But then they keep you so safe that you've divorced yourself from reality. Mm-hmm. And the Taekwondo has done that. Like, there's so many rules that it doesn't resemble an actual altercation anymore. And then sport jiu-jitsu is the same thing. It's like just not, people are fighting to those rules, and there's so many rules and so many things. It's not really real anymore.
Right.
And then, but combat jiu-jitsu in that element of grappling is very, very real. Is it 100% real? No, but it's very real. MMA.
We need Thunderdome.
We need Thunderdome.
Is that what you're talking about?
We need chainsaws.
I need Tina Turner.
Yeah, Tina Turner. We don't need another hero. Thunderdome.
I'm sorry, everybody. I started them down that path.
I love that movie. It was like 85, 86. I love that movie when I was a kid.
I wasn't born yet.
You weren't born yet?
No, I'm just kidding. Trying to pretend I'm.
Which is your favorite Mad Max movie? Thunderdome?
Yeah.
Oh, I like Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Thunderdome's good. Yeah.
Did you like the remake?
I did. I actually did. I did like it. My wife hated it. She couldn't last like 5 minutes. She's like, "What the fuck are you watching?" She's like, "This is terrible." Yeah. She saw the there's this guy driving the car in the remake, and he has like all this stuff on him. And he's like almost like half cyborgy kind of thing, and he's got this like skull gauntlets or something. I don't even know. And you're like, and she saw the guy with the guitar, and she's like, "What the hell are you watching? I don't want any part of this." I'm like, yeah, that's probably a rational decision there.
Yeah. That's funny.
But I enjoyed it, and what I really liked, and you can see this in a lot of entertainment now, is a more realistic approach to combat. And it obviously is cinematic, but it's a little bit more realistic. And the appearance of someone who is physically challenged, which is really awesome, and there was in speaking of combat jiu-jitsu, there was one special match. It was not part of the tournament, but there was a guy fighting with one arm, and he did amazing. He wound up. I'm pretty sure he wound up losing. Yeah, he wound up losing in overtime or something. But he gave his opponent a really good run for his money, and there should be a place for everybody to train and explore their martial talent. And some people don't realize, but Jean-Jacques Machado is a famous jiu-jitsu pioneer. He's born with a hand was not it was only partially formed, and so he's a master of the grappling arts with one hand. So.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. The guy's amazing. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him because I trained under his brother, Higan Machado, for a bit. And I was part of the Machado organization. I never trained directly with Jean-Jacques Machado, but he's sometimes in the room of where I was training. And I trained with some of his students, and particularly Dennis Ash, who I met in Brazil, who's a student of Jean-Jacques Machado. And anybody who's known Jean-Jacques has known that this guy's a warrior. Amazing. And he's fighting in a grappling art with one hand. Unbelievable. And there's and this guy in the EBI Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, was a special, one-on-one match, like in intermission time, and he fought a guy from here in New York, and they had a great match, and it was just awesome to see someone push themselves and as a like a para athlete, I guess you'd call it, right?
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just freaking amazing.
Was I saw your wife post on Instagram a picture of somebody doing they did a rack guard. Is that at that event?
Yes, they did. That's right. I totally forgot. Right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. A few people did it, actually. It was just one, right? One guy, I think he fell into position. It looked like he fell into position almost like by accident, because he didn't really seem to understand the position at a deep level. At least that was my take, of course, respectfully, because I don't know who he is. But there was one guy who was actually actively playing it. And, Barry Yoshida, who's, I'm a super fan of his. He's a great, great grappler. I trained in his academy, and I kind of showed him a couple things as the grab guard, and he just took it and ran with it. And he's actually used it in the EBI Combat Jiu-Jitsu and regular EBI championships.
So they have a connection to you.
Yeah. Barrett is was a master way before I was even anything in Jiu-Jitsu, and that I could just show him one thing that he liked. It just makes me super, super proud. Really and cool. He's used it at the high level and very, very effectively. And Tim Elliott used it in the UFC as well. And I think you'll see much more rack guard in EBI, because it's like you fall into those positions very, very easily. Like I said, one guy, it seemed like he didn't even realize he was there. It just happened. So it's like rack guard's kind of this like very natural position where you can kind of like, oh, I don't need to be flexible. I don't need to be like a contortionist. I don't even need to be strong. As long as the guy's attacking me, there's a way to enter into this position. And if I can't enter this, I can enter other ones. And then as I defend those, I can enter back into it, you know? So anybody wants to learn rack art, come to my academy.
Radical MMA
Shameless.
on 28th Street?
29th.
29th Street.
Shameless plug.
No shame.
Or support us through Patreon. No, I'm kidding. That's right.
We're doing commercials
Yeah,
now.
no, right.
All your proceeds go to the Paralympics.
No, but you know, it's like all these guys are online now. Doing like Patreon things. I didn't even know what that was until recently. I was listening to a podcast and he's like, support us through Patreon. I'm like, I just teach people, you know, in my academy. That's all I do. Yeah. But you know, it might be something. It's good. It's good if, you know, I have a lot of people send me emails too, Matt. And they're like I had this one guy send me from India, I believe. And he's like, you know, ask me advice. And, you know, it's cool. Unfortunately, I don't have so much time to answer them because I'm so devoted to my students here. But, you know, definitely, you know, helping people around the world is something that I would love to do, you know? So maybe that's a way to do it, you know?
I keep a track of the charts where the show ends up. And I think that was it Singapore?
Yeah, it must be Singapore because I have a lot of friends there.
But
thanks, Mike. Mike Kong is my black belt friend in Singapore.
On the iTunes has different charts for different countries. And in that area, we were in the top 10.
Really?
Of sports. Podcast.
Yeah, there's a great black belt in Singapore. I told you, this is from my friend Mike Kong. He's one of the assistant coaches at Evolve, but he's also he works for Google. He's amazing, master of jiu-jitsu, and also a brilliant software engineer.
Well, thanks for the support.
And yeah, he's probably like told all his friends to listen to it because he's my buddy. He's like, he probably said, you got to listen to Rene because he has, you know, I'll tap you out if you don't or something. And nothing but great things to say about Mike, who's you know, first and foremost a wonderful person, great human being, great father, and then also great martial artist as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else to go on to before we move to questions? I'm sure you have a lot more to say.
Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade,
okay,
the pile driver slam of the year.
Oh, everybody, do I have to watch that now?
Yeah, it was great. Okay, so I'll explain it to you. It's just, so you didn't get.
Is it visual? Is the visual worth it?
Oh my god. Okay, so
I'll look it up while you're explaining.
There's a lot of knockouts by punching in the UFC, obviously, right? But there haven't been that many knockouts by takedown. There have. And it is actually an incredibly important weapon. And so the first really like knockout by takedown in the UFC was Frank Shamrock versus Igor Zinoviev. And he shot the world's most awesome MMA double, picked him up and threw him on his head and shoulder so much that instantly broke Igor's collarbone and dislocated his shoulder and put him into shock. Unconscious right away. Bam! Wow. That was the first takedown KO. The second one was really famous. It's actually really famous. Is Carlos Newton versus Matt Hughes. And Carlos Newton had a triangle choke on Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes picks him up and knocks him out. But as he does it, he gets put unconscious by the triangle choke. So it's actually first KO tap out. But as Carlos Newton got knocked out, he let the triangle go. Matt Hughes wakes up and then he's declared the winner. So it's actually really fun. It's like a Rocky kind of finish. You know, it was crazy. The next one was Evan Tanner. He KO'd someone with and then there hasn't been a one for a while. There have been times where people threw them very hard and, you know, kind of knocked them senseless, but didn't KO them. And this one, let me tell you what happened. So they clinch first. They clinch once. Rose does a Kimura lock to stop Jessica from lifting her up. And the whole fight, Rose is shellacking Jessica Andrade. Pop, pop, pop. Outstriking her like outboxing, using her reach, using this, using the Pisau kick, the kick to the knee, using it, bam, 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 angles, movement, trap, pop, pop, pop. I mean, she is running a striking clinic. Uh-huh. Then Jessica Andrade clinches, tries to pick her up. What's her name? Rose gets her in a Kimura. Jessica's very thoughtful, so they kind of scramble, winds on the guard, winds on the bottom. Rose does some techniques. I forgot exactly what she did, kind of threatened submission, and they wind up getting up. She kicks her away. She does a kick to the chest and resumes a technical stand-up, which is a way to post and kind of like so people understand what a weightlifting Turkish grab is. You post on one hand, you kick the guy, and then you bring the leg underneath and stand up. So that's how she escaped. And then she continued to win the match. Then Jessica's like, okay, I see what you're doing with this Kimura. And there was a mistake there in the Kimura. There was a mistake. What was the mistake? Whenever you lock that Kimura on standing, they can still lift you up unless you use your shin to make distance. And I think Jessica was like, she's not using her shin. I can do that. I don't have to worry about this Kimura. So she shoots in, clinches up again. Rose does the Kimura again. She does not get her shin in. Does not block the shin against her own shin against Jessica's chest. Now, do you know what Jessica's nickname is in Portuguese?
No.
Bate estacada. Bate estacada. Bate estacada is a pile driver. That's the thing, this is explained by Jilson. I don't speak Portuguese. I know a couple words. That's it. I can converse jiu-jitsu Portuguese, like grab the arm and break at this, but I can't actually, I live there a little bit, but I can't actually have a conversation, Though when I was there, I could actually kind of survive, it was funny how you adapt to your scenario. But anyway, that's another story. So it's called pile driver. That's her nickname. And in every fight, she's picked people up and slammed them down. She hasn't knocked them out, but she's picked so many people up and slammed them over and over again. She's gone through that division. That's her thing. That's her nickname. So she's like, oh, she's not using her shin. Jessica's gets closer, locks her hand underneath the groin of Rose. We would call in wrestling a high crotch lift. She picks her up, spins her almost upside down, and drops her down so hard that she is just, way out into lunar orbit. She's gone. Her consciousness is gone. I mean, that was one hard slam. Have you seen it? You play it right now. It's
I think we're close.
Unbelievable slam. And just as she's slamming, it's funny because just as she's slamming, Dominic Cruz goes, oh, she's using the Kimura. Now Rose won't be able to, Jessica won't be able to slam her. And I'm saying, Dominic, you're wrong because she's not using her shin. I'm not saying Dominic is a bad coach. He's brilliant. But I think the angle, he couldn't see if the shin was in or not. He was assuming that it was. Because instantly he's saying, oh, see, by using the Kimura, she can't slam her. I'm like, no, she's going to get slammed. Because I saw it too. And she picks her up and just destroys her. And I really felt bad. She fell very, very violently to the point where her neck is probably going to have some medical intervention there to be the same. She's going to have to have some serious physical therapy. Outside of the UFC, there was the most famous slam is Fedor Emelianenko versus not Kevin Jackson. What's his name? Steroid guy, African American, dyes his hair blonde. He's passed away.
I can't remember.
Oh God, I can't. Anyway, but there's a famous slam, and this was just as bad. It's just absolutely brutal, and that it was done from a lightweight just shows you, how much. There it is. Yeah, you're watching it now. She's doing that Kimura, and she's like, nope, no knee, and she's gonna pick her up. Boom! Sure. Oh my God, yeah, right. That's it. And then she's done, and it looks like Rose is gonna retire. Looks like she's done.
What? Yeah. How old is Rose?
No, but it's
what is she?
I don't know. She said she might be done. And the same thing with who just fought. There was Anthony Smith versus Gustafsson. Gustafsson said he's probably going to retire. And
really?
Yeah. Sometimes you take a loss and it just rips out a piece of your soul. And that ripped out a piece of her soul. That's what happened right there.
She can't be more. She's born in 92. She's born in 92.
No, but it's not an age. I mean, she's in her prime too. She's in her prime, but I mean, and I think she should come back, but it's that sometimes they rip a piece out of your spirit and that piece is hard to get back, but that's the warrior path. And I hope she does come back and I will root for her because I'm she's
a great fighter.
Great fighter.
She's had quite a journey.
Great person too. Yeah. Just great journey. Great journey. Humble. Yeah. Very humble and, wonderful person.
She'll come back. She'll find somebody to help her through it.
Yeah. But that is I did not see that coming, but the minute she made that mistake and just that's what MMA is so cool. Just one little mistake and then you're done.
Yeah.
You're just unbelievable, So that's that.
Well, that was a great drop. All right. We got some questions for you.
She dropped it like it's hot.
Remember
Snoop Dogg used to be the commentator for the UFC. Remember on UFC Fight Pass or something? He had this thing where he was a commentator.
Oh my God, that's why they do it. On the video game UFC, you can have Snoop Dogg be the commentator.
No,
I didn't know that he actually did it professionally. I thought it was like a joke.
No, he did it. I think he was with.
He's not very good at it.
Well, of course not. He's high all the time.
He would just be like, "Oh man, that guy just got hit in the face. Oh my god!"
But I think he's like, there's two commentators. There's the guy who knows the stuff, and then there's the guy who's just there for like entertainment, and that's a good combination sometimes. Like sometimes it's really good. Like I could not stand Goldberg, right? The cold commentator of the UFC.
Yeah,
I could not stand him. He seems like a really nice guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy.
It seemed like they worked well together.
Yeah, they did. They did work, but he just didn't know enough. And now the commentating I feel is a lot better. But he did have a personality, and he did bring energy, and that was good. I don't want to talk bad about him. He's a great guy, but I felt that it was like he just didn't see the moves as much as I thought he should. But he definitely did bring personality to whatever. Anyway, haters gonna hate, right? I'm a hater. I think he's commentating for Bellator now. I think
he's fine.
Yeah,
he's doing all right.
He's doing all right.
I got a question here.
Yeah.
So
going on to questions now, right?
Yeah, we're moving on to questions. Unless you had anything else.
Yeah, no. So got a lot of questions in. First, the number one question is when are you gonna do the podcast again? And I have this one student
today,
Yuquan, and I love him to death, and he is an amazing student. But he's like, "Where's your podcast? Where's your podcast?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. We'll get to it. So
I booked every Monday in the month of June, so we're good.
Awesome. I can't. And we're gonna have some good guests coming up too. So
great.
Everything's great, and they're gonna love this space when they come in. This is just wonderful. This is just absolutely amazing. But the one of the thing was one question that asked me a lot is, I got this from a beginner. He's like, well, what is BJJ or Aikido kind of better for a street fight? What martial art is, what's better for a street fight? Aikido or BJJ, right? And I heard something very interesting about Aikido, and guys, some realize that I actually studied Aikido Jiu-Jitsu as well way back in the day, so I can kind of converse on Aikido Jiu-Jitsu a little bit more realistically because I did have the experience in the art. And Aikido Jiu-Jitsu is like not ever really represented in MMA because obviously its functionality is very limited, and a lot of its moves are based on archaic principles because the fighting was in armor. If a guy's wearing armor and you punch him in the face, he doesn't feel anything. The reason why, like, actually traditional Japanese karate does, or especially in the Japanese side, Japanese Kempo, not Okinawan karate, but Japanese Kempo doesn't have low kicks. One of the reasons it doesn't have low kicks and other arts like Thai boxing do is because Japanese wore greaves, armor on their shins. So you low kick a guy on his shin, he's like, that didn't really hurt that much. If he's wearing armor, you're not going to low kick him, So it just makes sense, right? Everything is contextual, and a lot of things are less modern in their technique when it comes to Aikido. Right. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it depends how you train, and everything depends how you train. Like I said, I had that experience where I was training once in a way that was very playful, very recreational, non-stressful. If you want to defend yourself, that kind of training is not beneficial. It should not be the majority of your training. It should not, because you must simulate the conditions that you want, that you're preparing for. That being said, any martial art, no matter how one-dimensional it is, if you're training full resistance, and what I mean, we'll use that term full contact, meaning full resistance. If I'm training punching and I allow every single punch, if I'm training kicking and I allow punching and kicking and every single punch to hit as hard as I can, if I allow grappling, wrestling, which is one-dimensional, but I allow every single takedown there is, or jacket wrestling, and I allow every single grip of the jacket or most of them, and then lots of takedowns from there, and we fight full resistance in that dimension, you will be much more prepared for a self-defense encounter than arts that train with less than full resistance. And Aikido arts, or some of these arts, train with no resistance. So no matter how good the technique is, say the technique is the best technique in the world, if you're not training with full resistance, it's not going to work. You're not going to be prepared. You're not going to be prepared the shock of battle. So let's put Aikido on the shelf. Let's talk about boxing. Imagine I'm going to teach you boxing. Okay? Now, most of the time when you do boxing, you do technique, you do bag work, you hit the bag as hard as you can, and then you spar. But right now, there's a lot of people who never, ever spar. Then they do, what we would call cardio boxing. But they don't call that cardio boxing. They still call it boxing. But it's not boxing unless you spar. And it's not. It doesn't, then you're doing cardio boxing. Because there's no competitive element in full resistance.
Right.
And so it doesn't even matter what martial art you're doing. if you are not training in full resistance mode in that dimension will not be the highest level of functionality for self-defense. This is a fact.
Sure.
And what do I mean by full resistance? Like, you can hit me as hard as you can, and you can also do any move, not limited to certain moves. Like in Taekwondo, they can sometimes kick hard, but they can't kick here, they can't punch, they can't do that. So you're limiting a lot of possible options. Or there's sometimes unspoken rules, like, oh, we just don't do that. So yesterday I was teaching, and one of my students goes, because I show him how to headbutt someone. And he's like, what is that? What are you talking about? He comes from a little bit of a karate and a Muay Thai background. And I'm like, it's a headbutt. It's one of the most common street fighting attacks there is. And we're going to learn how to do it because it can be very effective the way we do it. Mm-hmm. And he's looking at me like I am Conan the Barbarian. But I'm like, aren't you here to learn how to defend yourself? And he's like, yeah. Then wouldn't we want to do every single tool open to yourself, given that we can keep it safe? Yeah. Okay, now let's go. And he's like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then also in our academy, a lot of times we in our clinch, we're combining striking and grappling and also foul shots. And a lot of times I'll kick the guy's thigh instead of his groin. But, we sometimes really go for the groin too. Right. Because you got to know what it feels like. You got to know. You have to know. If you don't know, and it's sometimes important to get dropped by a groin shot and pick yourself up and just keep going. Or not get dropped, just hit and go like, and push through. Because if you haven't felt it and haven't felt yourself overcome that pain, you don't know what you're capable of. You don't want
surprises.
No, exactly. You don't want surprises. So it's like, first of all, any art that is not engaged in full contact resistance training will not prepare you for combat. That's number one, right? Any art that sticks to a unidimensional element will always be not as good as a mixed cross-training element, right? So I'm not saying don't train Muay Thai or don't train boxing or this, but eventually you have to move on and cross-train. But you must spar with resistance. And again, like we're saying, every art will have that element where you're walking that line. Well, okay, am I destroying my body by training in this resistance? You don't want that either. So you have to find a way, and sometimes the answer is equipment. Sometimes the answer is just like for a lot of Kyokushin, what they do is they just body spar. They just hit each other in the body. They don't hit the head, right? Well, that's kind of an answer, but then of course you lose your ability to defend the head. So it's a question. It's a tough way to do things. And like Robbie Lawler is a famous UFC fighter. He said for 10 years he stopped hard sparring. Because he's like, first of all, I have my timing. I have everything down. I don't need to hard spar and take brain damage. So that is definitely an issue with striking. But with grappling, it's not a problem because all you have to do is just tap. Like you can spar 100% in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Even the worst sport Jiu-Jitsu, you can spar 100% hard and you can really go. And then you can really prepare yourself for another person trying to control you. And obviously, if there's no strikes, it's not MMA oriented, there's going to be some limitations. But that you go 100% and I go 100% makes it much more relevant. So that's my answer to that question. But it depends how you train, and it depends how hard you go. Right. Yeah. So.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words.
Let's see if we got another one. Let's see. We got one more. We can get through before we got to wrap up. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. What drew you to Tercia?
Oh no, don't yeah.
Don't do that one.
No. That's an old one.
I'll let that one out.
Oh, that's the different. Oh, I sent you the wrong questions. That was those questions for Eugene.
Eugene, let us know. Send us a message and let us know how that goes.
That was a word. Okay, so
we have does 10 years of boxing beat karate?
Yeah, does 10 years of karate beat boxing, or does 10 years of boxing beat karate? Like again, we're like, what's the better striking art? And depends.
Aren't they very like? How do you aren't they apples and oranges?
Yeah, but okay, so this is kind of interesting. I was just listening to the podcast recently, or video, and the guy said, said something interesting. He's like, it was about Aikido again, right? But it was like, Aikido is a great conceptual thing to learn after you've got your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Because he's like, the concepts of Aikido, the concepts of movement, the kind of things, they're very high level in some ways. And they can, like, when you already know how to fight, then adding that in, that kind of thinking is the like the upper level thought, but it's not some place where you should start, because it's like the conceptually it's great, but you need to be down and dirty. And the thing is, karate and boxing are the same thing, right? Boxing tends to be down and dirty. Like you go in a boxing gym, first of all, it's generally not really a very friendly place. Like the boxing gyms I've been to, I believe in New York. I don't know other places, but I tend to think it's the same thing. You like get a trainer, you hit the bag, and then when you spar, it's not like, hey, you're my buddy in the boxing gym. The guy comes after you like nobody's business, right? And this is the way it is. This is my experience in a boxing gym, right? So I had this trainer, and then the other guys had their trainers, and then it would be a battle of prestige between the trainers of whose guy against whose, and it would have these sparring sessions. Now they would keep it safe and they'd hold it back. But I remember I sparred this girl, and she was a Golden Gloves girl, right? And she like kind of looked down at me. She was actually taller than me. She was taller, and she weighed about the same as I did, a little bit more. I was 155 at the time. She was probably 160. She was not a small girl, right? She was like 5'9", 5'10", and she already won the Golden Gloves. And she was good. She was very good. But I'd already been training very hard. I had a background in other martial arts too. And like I said, I had a karate background. But I was training boxing very hard. But she thought I was like some newbie. And so because we were the same weight, they put us together. And I was like, okay, is it going to be light sparring? Because it's like a girl, and maybe that thinking was a little bit sexist at the time. I was young. But my coach goes, it's not going to be light sparring, buddy. He's going to come after you. I'm like, what? He's like, you just watch. She's going to come after you. And sure enough, the bell rings, and there's this tornado of punches just flying in my face. And I managed to tag her a couple times, and she just turned it into a dogfight. And she just wanted to hurt me. And we were not like play sparring. We were just...
Oh, the fight.
Yeah, it was a fight. It was a fight. And then finally, it got to the point where the two trainers were like they're exchanging money. And I was in between rounds. Are you betting on me? He's like, no. I'm like, you're betting on me. And then they had to stop it, because it got to a point where we were gonna like actually hurt each other. And they trainers had some sense, so they stopped it after the third round. But she's a very good boxer. She's a very good boxer. And at that time, I was really serious about getting ready for MMA training. So I was doing boxing for like 3 sessions of 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, 3 sessions a day, 6 days a week. Wow. So I was very, very serious. And I wouldn't say I was the best boxer, definitely not. But I took my training very seriously, and so she did as well. I don't know what she's doing in her life, but I'm sure she's very successful. But like, it's not a friendly environment. And that actually is sometimes a good thing, because when you're like too comfortable and you know what to expect and this and that, it's not really that good. The most important, I always say, I said this in another podcast, the most important thing for self-defense is first awareness and focus, awareness of your surroundings. After that, it's adaptability. Because maybe you come at me like an untechnical, like brawler. Maybe you come at me technical. Maybe you come at me with kicks. Maybe you come at me punch. Maybe you come at grabbing my hair. Maybe you smash me into a wall. Whatever the situation is, I have to be able to adapt to that. And adaptability is the key. That's the most important part. And the first thing about adaptability is not training with the same guys over and over again and being comfortable knowing their game. That's why it's really important to step out and compete, whatever art it is. So you face someone you never faced before, and you don't know what he's going to do. So you have to adapt to that moment right there. Or just, kind of visit another academy. We had the issue, we were talking about the podcast, the issue of going to other academies. Some people don't like that, but in Japan, there was a huge thing called Degeko, where you always go and visit other academies so you can feel the game of other people and you don't know what to expect. And understanding how to deal with the unexpected is super, super important. So you could be training karate, and you could be in a great karate school that's very full contact and trains you like that. But most karate schools in America are not like that. So not to knock the art, I'm talking about the training here. They're just not hard training. They don't train you to train the unexpected. And so they're limited in their approach, That being said, there's some karate guys who are just phenomenal fighters. And you could see, like, they represent the UFC, Evan Thompson. There's a few of them. They're not coming to mind. Machida's fighting coming up, Chael Sonnen versus Ryo Damachi. Damachi's obviously represented karate very, very well. And, and they're definitely able to adapt what they know to a variety of opponents. So it depends where you train and how you train. The advantage that boxing has, it was never designed for, like, the way they train in boxing was designed to create competitors. So they train you in a hard way. And that's changing, though. Now you're like, a lot of people are cardio boxing. So they don't ever spar. But if you're training with a guy who's a legitimate boxing trainer, he will prepare you as far as he knows for a boxing match, which, because it's full contact in the boxing element, and you spar people you don't know, and you'll get some real world experience. Now, what I would say is, like, it's when you have that and you add on the kicks, you add on this, you add on the other stuff, then like we're talking about the Aikido, you add on these other elements, it can only benefit. But you got to know how to really handle yourself mentally and physically and adaptability wise under pressure. And if you're in a karate school or in a boxing gym, for that matter, or everywhere where you're not doing that, you're not going to be prepared. It just so happens that most of the time, and real boxing trainers do apply that training method to you. It's hard. It's not fun, but it's real. And in my academy, we always try to have some fun, but at the same time, every day is hard. Every day is hard, because if it's not hard, you don't grow. You only grow through adversity and challenge and discomfort. So that's what I would answer that question.
All right.
Yeah. Well, is that a good answer?
Very good. Well, could you beat up Mike Tyson? Present day, not prime.
No. I mean, Mike Tyson is, and then the thing is, the Mike Tyson is grew up in the streets. He knows how to handle himself.
Different kind of guy.
And I would never say that I was like the best fighter. However, if I could get to a grappling position, I know that he is less prepared than I am. Although, he has a very strong interest in MMA, and I've heard that he's taken some lessons and here and there and just kind of like dabbled in, because he always comes to MMA fights all the time and he loves the sport. So I would be surprised, given he has had so many street fights too, for, like, he grew up very, very hard. So I remember listening to an interview with him with stories, and he was talking about a street fight and how it involved a lot of grappling. So I'm sure he can handle himself in some of those elements. That being said, anybody who has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or in Judo, when they get to a grappling position and they train with someone who does not know grappling, you have a tremendous advantage. Absolutely tremendous.
That's where you go for the eye gouge and hope.
And it doesn't work.
Nope.
And the thing is, there's a great MMA fight versus Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki. It's a real fight. Antonio Inoki was a wrestler in Japan. And I think we talked about this in one podcast, but it was supposed to be a fake pro wrestling fight. And at that point, Muhammad Ali is probably the best boxer in the world. He was banned from boxing, but he was the best. So he did this pro wrestling match in Japan. It was supposed to be fake. It was in, I don't know, like 67 or 72, something like that, right? And Inoki knew that he could not beat Ali on the feet. So what did he do? He jumped on his back and started side kicking from the floor, side kicking Ali's shins. And he's like, Ali, come down and fight me. And Ali's like, no, Inoki, come up and fight me. Because in both of their dimensions, each one knew that they would lose. So if Ali went down to Inoki's dimension, which is grappling, he would have no idea what to do. If Inoki went up to Ali's striking, he would get lit up like a Christmas tree. So they both stayed in their dimension, and nothing happened for an hour, except Ali developed so many stress fractures in his shin that really stopped his career. And that's one of the reasons why he started addressing a different style, because his shin was so messed up. He took something like 400 or 500 kicks to the shin the whole fight, because it was an hour and something. They wound up stopping in his draw. It was supposed to be fake, but it became real. There's like some background story there that they just hated each other and I don't really know. But it became real. It became a real fight. And then it didn't stop until the promoters shut it down and said, okay, done.
Wow.
Die. Yeah. And it was an hour. It's online. It's the most boring fight you've ever seen. Because all it is Inoki flopping to the ground and kicking Ali in the shin. And the ref would stand him up eventually and then just flop to the ground and kick him in the shin. Now, let me tell you, if it's a one-on-one fight, that's not a bad way to beat a boxer. and if it were a self-defense scenario, if Ali's a bad guy, right? He would have to engage Inoki on the ground because it's self-defense, like a self-defense scenario, right? Wait, what is he going to do? Just not do anything? Then Inoki will just walk away. So, if it's a one-on-one fight. So, that's not necessarily a bad choice, but it was a very, very rational, very logical choice. So if I was in in a scenario where I was fighting someone who's a much better striker than I am, I'm going to clinch right away or try to find a way to bring it to the ground very, very quickly. And basically UFC won all over again. And if you can't do that, striker's going to win. But if you can, and the person has no grappling training, the grappler will be absolutely dominant. And that's what you saw. Gustafsson just fought Smith. And Gustafsson is great boxing. And Anthony Smith is not bad. But Gustafsson has always had a weakness in the grappling. Mm-hmm. Well, he gets taken down, gets his back taken, gets choked out. And that's all she wrote. When you give up your back to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, I don't care, even a sport black belt, whatever. You give up your back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you're probably going to lose. Right. But Anthony Smith is an MMA black belt. I mean, he is an MMA fighter, and he's a legit, Jiu-Jitsu black belt in MMA. I mean, I'm not saying he's like going to beat John Jones. Obviously, he didn't, but he's up there for a reason. Right. He was very dominant in that fight. Huh. Although in the striking they were doing both back and forth, doing very well. I didn't look at the scorecards, but it seemed like Gustafsson was maybe slightly ahead, a bit ahead. And I watched the fight very quickly, but last night it was like more not the full fight. It was the full fight, but it was like kind of like taking out the rounds and things. Like it was a little edited, but it looked like to me that in my very first watching that Gustafsson was winning the striking exchange slightly. Yeah, slightly.
I hope he doesn't retire. I like him. I think he's a good fighter.
Yeah, no, I think he's done.
Same with the.
Yeah, but anyway, it's great to.
We made it.
Yeah, we made it.
We made it through the hour, and hopefully we won't leave you a month and a half without hearing our voices again.
No, and I've got some great guests lined up in this new space, and I think we're gonna have some wonderful times.
We're gonna run into Teddy Ellis in the hallway and see if we can get him on the show.
I know, that would be amazing. I can tell how much boxing is not as good as MMA. I'm sure you'd love that.
This is an episode where I don't show up.
No, that's just kidding. What do you think about the fights coming up?
What's coming up?
Oh, there's so many good ones coming up.
I'm so unprepared.
Okay, we got to make another bet.
Yeah, sure.
Because your wife told me it's okay to bet again, right?
Did she?
Yeah, I think she said that.
Oh my gosh, I don't know about that. What is the next fight?
Yeah.
That's so far away. 238?
Yeah.
Cejudo and Morales?
Yeah, Moraes. Yeah, Cejudo Moraes. That should be an amazing fight.
Shevchenko versus Jessica Ai.
Yeah. There's some really good. So what do you think?
Ferguson versus Cerrone.
Jeez. Oh, yeah, Ferguson versus Cerrone. Cerrone's crazy. He just fought. He just fought. And
Did he take that fight at a late notice?
No, I think he was like, I want to fight again or something. I don't know.
He didn't take much damage.
No, he didn't. Yeah.
I'm going to do the main event.
Yeah.
Cejudo, Moraes.
Yeah.
I think Cejudo.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take Moraes, but I think Cejudo.
All right, and then let's do slaps.
With slaps? Okay. Yeah. All right. For sure. Let's do that.
All right.
Did you see the slap competition?
There's a slap competition.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. This world is ridiculous.
It's they stand in front, they have to slap each other, and whoever keeps standing. This is so dumb.
Well, let's not do that. Let's just one slap
to the face.
Sure.
Okay.
Not the butt. I'm not ready for that.
Or to the belly.
The face is fine.
The face, okay?
The face is fine.
Okay.
You're not going to break my jaw.
No, I would never do that. You know what? It's not fair. I'll do your belly because it's not fair. You can do my face, but I can't. It's not fair.
Why? Because you're trained?
Yes.
Well, I'll take some training. Teach me how to slap.
I will teach you how to slap.
Did you watch How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah. Great show. No, I didn't see that one. What?
Well, he went to Shanghai to learn how to slap.
Really?
Because he could slap his friend in the face one time. And so he went on a journey throughout Shanghai learning the slap techniques.
Oh, he's like some slap master in Shanghai or something? Yeah.
So he learned the 3 master traits of slapping, and then the slap of 1,000 exploding suns is what he learned.
Did it work?
It did. It hurt his face real bad. But no suns were exploded.
No suns?
No suns.
Okay. All right. Well, I will not explode any suns.
Appreciate it. All right. That's it for us. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Marshall_Culture and on Instagram at MarshallCultureCast. Please leave a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time on the Marshall Culture Podcast.